Hi, my name is Henry and I am the owner and sewing pattern designer for Sewillow Sewing Patterns. Today I wanted to talk to you about the Paneira dress, and I wanted to specifically talk about this variation I made this week. Last week I was contacted by a TV show to have an interview done, and I knew I needed something really simple to wear. I was going to wear this outfit that I'm wearing right now, but I didn't want to have anything too fussy that was going to distract. And so I thought I wanted something really simple and a little bit classy that I could wear for this interview. And I wanted to wear a dress as well. So I didn't have much time available to sew something from scratch, and I knew I needed to do something simple. So the Paneira dress is perfect for me because as you can see, it hasn't really got any darts. There are no fastenings on the dress. I already had the pattern printed out and I had already traced it. I knew that I could probably put this together in a few hours. I'm pleased to say that I managed to make this. I think I started cutting fabric at about 3:30 and I managed to finish at 7 o'clock on Wednesday night, and they were arriving at 9:30 on Thursday morning. So I thought I'd let you guys know how you too can use the Paneira pattern to make this variation of the dress. The Paneira dress is actually designed to be sewn with a knit jersey fabric, so that's a stretchable fabric, which is why it hasn't got any darts and any fastenings. I didn't have any stretch fabric and I really wanted to do something in a bit of a linen look. So I had this linen, which actually has, if you see here, it's got a little bit of stretch, not a lot, not this way, but this way. So I knew I could get away without having to size up too much. If you were going to go ahead and sew the Paneira dress out of a woven fabric like this, if your fabric has not got any stretch at all, I would definitely recommend that you size up at least one size. So check the finished measurements on the pattern pieces, and then you will know what size you need to make in order to accommodate. Another thing to be wary of with this dress pattern is the original dress pattern has quite a high neck. I knew that sewing this from a woven fabric meant that it was probably unlikely I was going to get a mock neck pulled over my head, because normally if I was going to sew from a jersey fabric, I would also be using a stretch stitch on my machine. Without that stretch stitch, the stitches are going to pop if I try and stretch the neck. Instead, I slightly lowered the front neckline, and I did that after I cut out all the fabric pieces. I didn't want to go too low, knowing I was going to be filmed, and I also really wanted to show off these necklaces that I wanted to pair with the dress. So this variation of the Paneira dress differs from the actual pattern in that I used the view B options for the sleeve, but I also lengthened the lower tier. You'll notice the Paneira dress pattern has got either the long sleeve option, which has got a cuff at the end, or it's got the short sleeve option, which has got a cuff at the top. For this, A, because I was running out of time, and because I thought it would add nice movement, I decided not to add the cuff. And as you can see, it actually worked really beautiful as this kind of flutter sleeve. You can sort of see here on the pattern how the sleeve shape looks when it's not sewn up. A nice wide sleeve. And when it's gathered at the top of the shoulder, it creates this really lovely drape. Now you can see, because this pattern doesn't have any bust darts, there's a little bit of pull here when the sleeves hang, and when you wear it, you will get some lines here. So normally you would eliminate that by putting in a bust dart, but I still thought that with a bit of movement and a bit of like how the linen is hanging, it would look okay, and it did pay off and it was all fine. So to save time when I made this, I only overlocked the shoulders, the neck, the shoulders for the sleeve. I overlocked the straight edge where the sleeve joins on the underarm side, and I did not have to overlock the sleeve edge because I knew I would be hemming that, and I did not overlock the lower skirt edge because I knew I would be hemming that as well. But I did overlock these sides, and I also overlocked the non-gathered edge of the top tier. Once I'd overlocked all the straight pieces, I then decided to do the gathering. For the sleeves, I did the underarm area up to the point where the gather started. Then I changed the settings on my overlocker to a gathering setting, and I gathered at the top, and then I continued with a normal overlocking setting to not gather the rest of the sleeve. Once I'd gathered the sleeve tops, I then also gathered the top of this tier and the top of this tier. But of course, if you have more time, I would always recommend you do the 2 straight lines of sewing and then gather that way, because you will get a neater gathered edge. But I'm frankly, I'm quite surprised how well and how neat this turned out. So once I had found the neck edge and the size that I wanted, after stitching together the front and the back, I then stay stitched this neckline all the way across. And then I cut facings to match. I just measured about 3.5 centimeters down and just copied from the front and back patterns to cut this facing all the way around. Now you might be able to see the little tiny dots, and I quite like that. This kind of reminds me of old-fashioned trouser hems and skirt hems, where you can see the little stitches. So I did a blind stitch from behind to keep the facings flat, mainly because I just sewed the facings really quickly, and so they weren't quite small enough to lay completely flat, even though I did understitch on the back. To add a little bit of interest, and because I only had black shoes to wear, I decided to add a belt. When you wear something pale like this, a great way to add in extra color, like if you need to match a pair of shoes or a handbag, is to wear a scarf as a belt. One of the ways that I do this is I use a really simple D-ring. As you can see, without the belt, it has got a really nice drape. There's enough gathers at the front and enough gathers all the way around the back. I've got this really lovely scarf that I've picked up from one of my favorite vintage sellers called Honeykins Vintage. I just fold my scarf over, then I go around the waist, and when I get to the front, I just pull the edges of the scarf through one way, from the back through to the front. Once I've got that, I can pull tight. I would just tie it into a knot at a comfortable tightness, and then what I would do is I would just tuck this underneath to hide where I have knotted it. I like to have a little bit less of the gathers on the front to give a smoother appearance around the kind of tummy area. So what I would do is I would pull the gathers all the way around to the back, so you get a bit more fullness on the back of the dress and got a nice smooth appearance on the front. So I wanted to show you a few other ways that I would choose to style a dress like this. The thing I really love about a neutral linen is that, I mean, this would just be really nice to wear to the beach with just some sandals. For this kind of waistline, it's really nice to wear like a little blazer with it. It kind of narrows down the middle section. Something else I love to do during the colder months is I love layering polo necks over the top of dresses and then wear the dress a bit like a skirt. It's nice to have to lift the waistline a little bit to match the waistline there. So you could always put a little elastic band in underneath that you wear, pinch the waist in a little bit. If it wasn't for the fact that I was trying to wear black shoes, I probably would have styled this dress with this belt, which is my favorite belt, and this one is also from the vintage shop Honeykins Vintage. So I'd probably wear it with a belt like this, and then to kind of complement that, if I was going to have some tan shoes, I might then also pair it with a neckerchief like this. I hope you found it helpful to have heard how I managed to make this in such little time, and how you might be able to make your own version, and also how to style it. And if you like this format of video, then give it a thumbs up or leave me a comment to let me know if you'd like to see more of this, and maybe I can do a run through of some of the other patterns and how I wear them and how I style them. And if you're wondering what I'm wearing today, I'm wearing the Dahlia Dungarees, and underneath that I'm wearing a little corset vest. Folds over the top just nicely, creating like a little Peter Pan collar. I didn't realize it would do this until I put it on this morning. And then because I'm in my sewing room and we don't wear shoes upstairs in our house, I'm wearing my Briza House Slippers, which I wear in my sewing room most days anyway. Yes, I hope you've enjoyed hearing how I've sewn the Paneira dress into this linen non-stretch version and how I have worn that, and I hope you like it and maybe you will make one yourself.